Hey, Vinyl Community, Elliot here, Lazy Dogs Records. Chris Profi started a thread showing records from 1974, and I wanted to jump in on that. First of all, what's played in the background, Crosby and Nash. It's a live album, simply called Live. There's the crowd. There's Crosby and Nash. Back when they were getting along, they're feuding now. Crosby's trying to make up, but Nash isn't having any of it, it seems. Old men, when they get feuding with each other, sometimes it's hard to get them to reconcile. But maybe one day. Crosby has this habit of talking too much. He's got diarrhea of the mouth. He makes remarks and stuff, and people get pissed off at him. And then he goes and says, I'm sorry, that was stupid, I shouldn't have said it. And I guess when you've forgiven somebody for 40 or 50 years, it's hard when you're hitting, year 50 something or so, and they still doing it. Maybe you don't want to forgive them. I don't know. But, Graham, just let it go, man. Just y'all reconcile. You don't have that many more years on earth. You might as well, get along with your lifelong buddies, faults and all. Okay, so 1974, I was 15. Late in the year, in October of 74, I turned 16. I was beginning to buy records. Not all these records I bought in 1974. I'll try to point out the ones that I did, but I just went through my collection, looked it up on Discogs. I don't have everything on Discogs, but I had to see what came up. And got a few ideas, and others I just stumbled upon. But so I didn't spend a whole lot of time trying to do this. But here goes. Okay, 1974, Jerry Jeff Walker put out Walker's Collectibles. And we were big Jerry Jeff Walker fans. I was discovering him around 74, 75. This is an MCA record, and he was on MCA for many, many years. None of these songs are really jump out at me as being, some of my favorites from him, but that's his album from 74. I was into bluegrass when I was a teenager, still am, 50 years later. And one of my favorite bands has always been the Seldom Scene, especially the John Starling years with Seldom Scene. Band out of the D.C. area, great bluegrass band that pushed the envelope a little bit. They would be kind of called, they weren't really new grass. They weren't jam grass or anything like that. But their repertoire was expanded from the traditional and standards in the bluegrass realm. They were doing contemporary interpretations of contemporary songs and things like that. And they're a really, really good band. But this is their album, Old Train, from the Seldom Scene, from 1974. And this is a really good album. Trying to see if they're doing any interpretations here. It's pretty traditional, actually, on here. Do a Don Reno song, several songs they wrote. Paul Kraft, who was a Nashville songwriter, they're doing two of his songs. But there's a Herb Peterson song on here. Wait a minute as well. Okay, Seldom Scene. Now, one member of the Seldom Scene was Mike Aldridge, and he was a dobro player, and he put out a solo album called Blues and Bluegrass in 74. There that is. And that is on Tacoma Records, which isn't Tacoma out of, San Francisco or somewhere like that. Where's the other side of this? This is one of those Record Star albums in that there's so many artists guesting on here or playing on here. Most, if not all, the members of the Seldom Scene are on this solo album. David Bromberg's on it, Vassar Clemens, Linda Ronstadt, Lowell George is on here, Ricky Skaggs, Dole Lawson. So several artists from different genres. Now, staying in that, I have no real connection with Washington, D.C., but there's a vibrant music scene in Washington, D.C., from punk to bluegrass. All kinds of really great stuff has come out of there over the years. Uh, uh, None any better than this blues/blues rock band called the Nighthawks. What a great band this was. And they put out rock and roll on Aladdin Records. And well, maybe you hold it like that. I believe I had it wrong way. Hold it like that. And this is, I think this is their debut album. Mark Winter is the harmonica player and lead singer on there. Very, very good band. They put out a bunch of albums. I don't know if they're in any form out there today or not. Maybe, maybe not. Okay. Concept albums. You don't normally think of country music as country music artists putting out concept albums, but you don't really think of Willie Nelson as a very play it safe country artist, do you? Well, there is a great album he did, Phases and Stages. He did it in 1974 on Atlantic Records when Atlantic was trying to have a presence in the country market. I think he did 2 albums for Atlantic before he went on to CBS. But this is very much a concept album, a great, great album. Willie Nelson, Phases and Stages. Some could argue that might be his masterpiece, not Red-Headed Stranger. I don't know. You can make the argument. Both of them are great, I know that. Little Feat, from L.A., but with a strong D.C. connection. Now we keep going back to Washington, D.C. A very strong D.C. connection. They were popular in that Maryland, D.C., Northern Virginia area. They had some ties there with bands like the Seldom Scene, those artists, things like that. They put out this album. I love the artwork on Little Feat albums. This is Feet Don't Fail Me Now, and nothing really to see from the other side. On Warner Brothers album, 1974, and probably standout songs on here. Spanish Moon's on here. Oh, Atlanta's on here. And Feet Don't Fail Me Now, among others. And of course, when they put out a couple years later, when they put out their Live Waiting for Columbus, really boosted their career a great deal. Okay, and then the heyday of the Macon, Georgia record label, Capricorn, with a affiliation with, I guess it's Atlantic, isn't it? But they were located in Macon, Georgia, and of course their original artists on Capricorn were the Allman Brothers. And they had a lot of different acts, and a variety of acts for that matter, on the label at that time. And I remember being a 15-year-old kid, my mom didn't like it, but I had a subscription to Rolling Stone magazine when I was 13, 14, 15, 16. In the 70s, you needed to read Rolling Stone. That's where you got so many great record reviews, and you read about the bands and artists. You didn't have the internet to search things or anything like that. And I could remember reading the review for the album I'm about to show you, and going out and buying that album and feeling like I was in the vanguard for having this album. Of course, this artist had been around for a number of years at this point, but now he's affiliated with Capricorn, and he would do several very successful, his most commercially successful period would be with Capricorn. Elvin Bishop, this is Let It Flow, first album he put out for them in 1974. And, you know, there's nothing earth-shattering about this album. It is a fun, party-type album. And I think that was the purpose. That was what he was trying to do. It's got Stealing Watermelons on here. Traveling Shoes, which kind of was an FM radio hit, I would say. They do Merle Haggard's Can't Hold Myself in Line. He does a song called Fishing, which he still does today. Let It Flow. He does Hank Williams' Hey Good Looking. It's a really fun album. Okay? Now, the Allman Brothers, as I said, of course, were the catalyst for and the big breadwinner for Capricorn Records. after the success of Brothers and Sisters with their, top 10, I don't know that it ever went to number one. It may have uh, with Ramblin' Man, but after the success of Brothers and Sisters album, uh, Dickie Betts and Greg Allman both decided to do solo projects. And Greg, the year before, had done Laid Back, and it was all within a year or so of each other. But Greg had done Laid Back, and Dickie was working on his solo project. It didn't come out until '74, though. And this is a really good album. Richard Betts, it goes by on here. Highway Call, it's called. And it's featuring the Rambos, the gospel group, Poindexters. Uh, let's see, Vassar Clemens is on here. Chuck Lavelle is on here. Tommy Town. But this is a really good, Johnny Sanderling and Richard Betts produced it. This is a really good album. It didn't sell as well as Laid Back did. Funny story, I don't know if it's a funny story or not, but they each went on tour with their solo albums, Laid Back, and then Greg came along, followed it up, and did a live album. But they each had their solo albums out, and so instead of touring as Allman Brothers, they each went out and toured as solo acts. And there was some rivalry between them. I think Dickie felt like Greg got all the best backup musicians to tour with him. Sometimes they would be in the same city or near each other on the same night or a week later or something like that. Each felt the other may have hurt their ticket sales for their shows when that happened. You go see Dickie Betts on October 23rd, and then Greg Allman's playing the next weekend. And you have a limited amount of cash, you might not go to both shows. You might decide one or the other you're going to. Oftentimes it was Dickie on the short end of the stick, and that's a shame because Dickie was always overshadowed by Dwayne. But I really believe Dickie was the heart and soul of the band during the 1970s. He's the one that kept them together at the darkest hour. And he was sometimes a tyrant as a band leader, and eventually it cost him his position in Allman Brothers many years later. So, but Dickie's an amazing artist. What did Dwayne say about there's two guitarists in the Allman Brothers band? He said there's the famous one, me, and then there's the great one, Dickie. Something, I may have the quote a little bit off, something like that. Okay, the last one I'll show you here. Greg Allman released a live 2-record set as a result of that tour he went on in '74. It came out in '74, the Greg Allman tour. And the nice thing about Greg, I think it says something about his character, and he had his faults like we all do, but he made sure that one whole side of this album is, I believe I'm correct in saying that, one whole side of this album is he took out the band Cowboy, which was basically Boyer and Taunton and backup musicians they put together to form that band. Cowboy was also on the Capricorn label. He took Cowboy out as his touring band and gave them plenty of opportunities to perform their own material on there. And there's also a 24-piece orchestra on this. If Allman Brothers had been just Greg's vision, Greg would have had a horn section. They would have been an R&B band more than a hard blues and jam band. They would have been he liked the R&B side. I think he would have had horns in the band, and he may have dabbled with orchestration on some of their material too. But of course, it wasn't his vision. That's why he did solo work. Okay, well that's it, everybody. remember, be kind to your neighbor. We're all neighbors.